you probably have a decade to buy Bitcoin while people think that it's still dangerous and risky. But because once that's done, I think the price of Bitcoin will be probably unattainable. That's where we are going, you know?
As we delve into historic decisions and contemporary challenges, Ahmed's expertise in Bitcoin adds a unique perspective to our exploration. From safeguarding gold reserves to grappling with taxation debates in the digital era, join us as we navigate the past, present, and hopeful future of Lebanon's economic landscape with Ahmed Klink. Before we get on with the video, we'd like to introduce our sponsor, Stampseed. Don't forget to follow the link in our description below for 15% off your stamping kit. Furthermore, 77% of our viewers on this channel are not yet subscribed. If you are enjoying this content and want to support our efforts, please hit that subscribe button and help our videos find more people. Without further ado, here is Ahmed Klink on the Progressive Bitcoiner podcast.
Lebanon has, I think, the 19th largest gold reserves in the world. And the main reason why they have such large reserves is because they essentially refuse to liquidate their gold reserves when they needed to. When the gold peg was severed in 1973 by Richard Nixon, instead what they did is they depleted their foreign currencies reserves instead of selling their gold. Lebanon needed to support the economy, right? Needed to rebuild the country, like GDP went down, but actually government financed GDP went up. And I think they found once they refused to sell the gold, like, you don't have any other chance. One of the things that actually threw Lebanon and into more of a social unrest was when the government wanted to tax WhatsApp calls. They wanted to tax WhatsApp calls because there's so many people, so many Lebanese that live abroad and obviously keep in touch with their families in Lebanon. And I think it was around 2019 when the government was like, well, why don't we just tax these calls and make money off of it? And people went crazy. They just descended on the streets and protested. Like, I mean, how silly does that sound? Absolutely, completely desperate to increase revenues, right? Obviously, the law didn't pass because people protested against it so much that it's funny to think about that. You would never think about, what if you taxed social media? Like, holy shit. When I look at Lebanon and the photos that I've seen of it, the stories that I've heard from my grandmother, my parents in the 50s and the 60s, it was an absolutely beautiful country where, they had American cars, the movie theaters were packed, the shows. I mean, Beirut was the Paris of the Middle East. And Lebanon was essentially mostly a free market economy with a currency pegged to, the dollar and by virtue to gold. And going back to a sound money standard is absolutely needed. And this is just kind of how, in my mind, history works. I think it's ebbs and flows, it's cycles. And the cycle of fiat currencies is destined to end at some point. I'm excited to see where the world goes in the next 10 and the next 20 years. It's going to be really, really interesting. And, I kind of feel fortunate that we get to live this. My mom got Bitcoin immediately. I didn't have to explain it to her for a long time. Because of what happened to her, because she's seen her savings being wiped. She understood the value of it and having a store value. I think her generation, her brothers and sisters, it's really tough because the Lebanese community loves cash. It's unbelievable. I think at least the boomer generation, if they can't touch it, for them it's not real.
Sure.
And I think that obviously for the most of the population in Lebanon, that caused some, that probably slowed down the numbers of people that got into Bitcoin, because it's such a, even when my mom tries to explain it to them, they're like, but it's not real. You can't touch it. You can't.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's because for them, gold and cash was money. For that generation was like, the cash was backed by gold, and that's how it worked, right? But my cousins, it's a different conversations. They're people that are in their 30s, in their 20s. They get it immediately, and they run their own nodes, and of course, there's some. You got to separate the signal from the noise, because there's a lot of shitcoining happening in Lebanon too, right? There's so many, even, closest friends in my family, like they fell for whatever coin that was cheaper than Bitcoin, because Bitcoin seems unattainable to them. I think you need 8 billion Lebanese pounds to buy Bitcoin today. For someone who's in their 20s, it's absolutely completely crazy. But you also have to educate them about unit bias and then things like this, right? So, but yes, like Binance definitely made a killing in Lebanon, and they marketed a lot of shitcoin to people. So, there are groups like Bitcoin Lebanon that is, that has wonderful people in it, like people like Suli, that do a great job of educating people in Lebanon about that. And I do my best as well to talk to people there and explain to them why this shitcoin is not Bitcoin, essentially. And books like the Bitcoin Standard that are being translated, Saifuddin doing podcasts in Arabic, like all of that stuff is coming to Lebanon, and I think is going to educate people and the next generation. Yeah, so I think I'm pretty hopeful that that they'll get it. For now, I think it's still, USDT is a big one. Tether, USD stablecoins are hugely, because Lebanese people from the boomer generation always considered the dollar as a saving vehicle, which is totally fair. Like to me, when my grandfather gave me dollars, it meant more than when he gives me a Lebanese pound. You discover that you need a store of value that you can control, right? Something like Bitcoin, where you control the keys, you control who you send it to, and you keep your purchasing power. I mean, like I don't know what people would do without Bitcoin. Seriously, it's mind-blowing when you think about it. Like there wouldn't be any escape, right? There wouldn't be any way to protect yourself from the devaluation of your currency. I mean, my grandfather did everything right. He had land, but then somehow got convinced that his land was worthless.
Today's video is sponsored by Stampseed. Don't store your Bitcoin in cold storage without stamping your seed phrase on an indestructible titanium plate. Stampseed is fireproof, rust-proof, impact-proof, and easy to hide. It has no loose parts and will give you ultimate peace of mind that your Bitcoin is safe and sound for the long term. Click the link in the description below for 15% off your stamping kit. Welcome to Bit Intelligence. We are committed to bringing you top-notch Bitcoin-only content. Subscribe to our channel and hit that bell icon. Okay, back to the video.
America is, in my opinion, way more likely to embrace Bitcoin than it is to ban it in some way. I don't think it embeds so much of American values that I don't see that happening. You know, like Bitcoin is America, right? And America is Bitcoin. If you think about it, it's for a country that was built on freedom principles and free markets. It's going to embrace it. I mean, I don't think they would have approved ETFs if they were not looking to do that. And Bitcoin's for everyone, right? Like it is going to be for central banks. It is for hedge funds. It is for ETFs. It is for me. It is for you. It is for anyone who needs it. And that's the beauty of it. I mean, it's going to be there, right? Whether with you or without you, right? Like Bitcoin, Bitcoin is here. Bitcoin is here, and whether you get on board or not, like it's not gonna care. And it's kind of here. It's just for people that want to pay attention. It's here, and I think Michael Saylor said this. He was like, "You probably have a decade to buy Bitcoin, while people think that it's still dangerous and risky. But because once that's done, I think the price of Bitcoin will be probably unattainable." That's where we are going, you know? I think, I mean, you're probably 10 steps ahead, and, you know, we need you to be, right? I think the world needs Bitcoiner to be ahead, because there's going to be so much onboarding and explaining to do. We need to be sort of ahead and kind of lead that movement that's going to be coming. So I think it's super important. But a lot of it, you know, to your point about the US being the world reserve currency, is that we don't have any comparison point, right? Like, what do we compare the dollar to? Like the dollar is the standard. Everything is being compared to the dollar. And I think it trips a lot of people up. It's like, oh, well, the dollar is the standard. But, you know, if you look at the inflation rate of the dollar against Bitcoin, it's pretty damn, it's not flattering. Let's put it that way.
Our journey through Lebanon's economic landscape with Ahmed Klink reveals a narrative woven with resilience and transformation. From historic decisions on gold reserves to the dawn of digital currencies like Bitcoin, Lebanon's story reflects the ebb and flow of economic evolution. Stay tuned for more enlightening discussions, and remember to subscribe for the latest recaps, insights, and films about all things Bitcoin. If you want to watch another one of our podcast recaps, try this one here. We'll see you next time.